Thank you for joining us. You are watching KUHS The Stream, and this is the Weekend Boost. I am your host, Paul Lane, and the author of The Caregiver's Handbook, a self-help love story. Guys, I'm so grateful to have you here. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to my wife, Dee. Always thinking about you, baby. I would love you. And today we have a very special day because we're going to be talking about some really, really important things. You guys know how much I talk about Kalma, and I actually brought two of the founders of Kalma with me today. But before I do that, I just want to talk briefly about a couple of other things. You know that I like to talk about books. That's what the show's about, and that's what we do. Timothy Snyder wrote this book on tyranny. The United States is under siege, my friends. The United States is right now under siege by a hostile, violent, militarized government. One of the main things that he talked about in the beginning of this book was do not obey in advance. We don't have the problems in Denver that they have in Minneapolis, but we know that those monsters are out there. We know that those people are out there harassing and harming people simply because their skin is brown and their eyes are brown and because they speak a language that they don't understand, or some do. But the point of it is, it's very important for you to understand where you are right now and what you can do to stop it, because we've got to stop this, guys. It's got to be stopped. I want to talk briefly about a topic that we don't talk much about. You never hear this topic. It's something that military people only talk about. It's called rules of engagement. When you are in the military, you have strict laws, enforceable laws that say if you break these rules of engagement, for example, firing on an unarmed person, you will be arrested. You will face criminal charges. A couple of weeks ago, there were two people murdered in Minneapolis, and Stephen Miller came out and said, you are completely immune. And Stephen Miller's a liar. Stephen Miller was wrong. You will be held accountable. Those people will be held accountable. If they're not held accountable on federal charges, I guarantee you, they will be held accountable on state charges. And those governors, mayors, whoever they are, they need to pursue state charges for the murders of those two people in Minneapolis. That's all I'm going to say to that. Rules of engagement are very specific, they're very strict, and they're very highly recognized. When you fire on an unarmed person and you are armed, that is not defense. They did not fear for their lives. Those two were two unarmed people. And you know how upset I get about this, and you know where I stand with that. Again, that's all I'm going to say about that. The other thing I want to talk about is in Palestine. There's been over 550, now it's over probably 600 people that have been killed since the ceasefire. I'm going to say these two words and then we're going to move on. Free Palestine. Guys, you all know how much I support and believe in Kalma, Colorado Alliance for Latino Mentors and Authors. And you know how every time I come on the show I talk about this book, Ramas y Raíces, Branches and Roots. This is the anthology of the Kalma organization. I tell you, this is a collection of short stories, essays, and poems by many, not just famous, but some unknown, but many authors from the Chicano Latino community who are part of Kalma. And I'm so excited. I'm proud that I have two poems that are in this book. But the point of that I want to make today is that, guys, I talk about this book every week for a reason, because I want you to have it in your collection. You know, the motto of the show is very simple. Everybody's looking for a hero. And if you can't find one, be one. Well, guys, today I have some heroes on my show today. I'm not kidding you. These are two of the founding members of Kalma. Dr. Frank Davila, he's a groundbreaker, man. He's a hero. I'm telling you, he's been in the Chicano Latino community being active since way back in the 60s. Have you ever heard of an organization called LULAC? Look it up. It's still around. It's a huge organization of Latino people in America. This is one of the founding members right here. Frank Davila, thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me be here. It's a pleasure.
It's an honor, really an honor to have you both. A wonderful Chicano poet, and I mean, he's done so much more than that. Community activism, someone who's been around for many, many years in the Chicano Latino community, someone who's made a big difference over the years, is Mr. Ricardo Laforet. Thank you so much for being here today.
Paul, thanks for having us. Pleasure to be here, brother.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's just truly wonderful to have you both. Guys, I'm so excited because every time I come on the show, we talk about Calma, and what is Calma? I know it's the Colorado, Alliance for Latino Mentors and Authors, but what is Calma?
Well, about 6 years ago, I guess, Frank Davila, who knew different writers, poets in the community, asked to meet with us. We met online, and because it was during the pandemic, it was raging then, and he put together. 6 of us came together, and because we weren't quite sure what the outcome of that initial meeting was going to be, but one thing that we all agreed upon is that traditionally, history books, high school curricula, and even the mainstream media have ignored the fact that we have writers and poets and essayists within our own community, and yet they're often entirely ignored or outright just simply dismissed as not being part of the great literary tradition. We took exception to that, and we said what we need to do is to create an awareness, not simply by talking about it, but by doing things where we can showcase our talent, where we can showcase our poems, our essays, and so forth. So I believe we began 6 years ago, and Frank, correct me if I'm not wrong, our very first program that we did online was Words of Love, and it was everyone could take part. We had people from California, Texas, Oklahoma, and one person who even logged on from Chicago, who was a mariachi singer.
Oh, wow.
And so we did the whole Valentine's Day poetry session, and that would prove to be very, very successful and very popular. So we went on from there, and then as we went on, we recognized the need to become more formalized, to become more structured, to become, in essence, an organization rather than just a splinter group. And we all took part in what that would look like. Frank, you remember those?
Oh yeah. When we first began, Paul, there were a few of us that we knew who were published writers, and a few other ones that we wanted that were aspiring writers. And so we got together as a small group and said, how can we help each other? Because we could recognize within the Denver metro area, we asked each other who are some of the published writers in the area. I think we came up with about 13, including us. So I said, wait a minute, there's got to be more than that. So we began exploring more and more, and eventually we found other writers, amazing writers that have been writing for decades that we didn't know about. And Manuel Ramos, excellent, beautiful writer, Mario, and so forth. They've been at it for years. And so when we came together, we began to talk about how we're going to call this organization. So we threw out all kinds of names. We wanted to include their Latino. We wanted to include their culture and books and so forth and mentoring. And so we came up with all these acronyms. And finally somebody said, what about Calma? I said, Calma. Well, that means calm. But at the same time, it kind of reverberates with being the opposite of that, because we want to be calm, but at the same time we be productive and be out there. And then so, because we were, as Ricardo said, we were single digit in the United States as far as the representation of Latino writers. Even now, they're still probably 10% at the most. So we knew we needed to help each other, and nobody else was out there to help us.
Wow.
So we took that opportunity to coalesce and become a group and say, okay, how are we going to support each other? And we began to put together a little website that somebody had an expertise into that. As Ricardo said, we had a Zoom meeting where we had all these presentations and so forth. And so it was a beautiful event. And so that's Calma, the idea of how do we help other people promote and then advertise and train and bring them up and put a spotlight on them, provide venues. That's what we were trying to accomplish as a Calma.
I got to tell you, the first time I went to a Calma event, I didn't know what to expect. It was at the bar, Raices bar.
Yes.
And I went in there, and man, all of a sudden I started seeing all these people who looked like me, man. And they all had books. They were tables set all up in this room. And oh, man, I can't even tell you how excited it was, how exciting it was to, because all my life I've always seen us on the outside looking in. You know, when I look at corporate America, we're on the outside looking in. When I see the media, we're on the outside looking in. When I see corporate, business, we're always on the outside looking in or on the bottom looking up. And so when I went in that room, oh man, I was like energized when we left there, man. I was like almost vibrating because it was like, this is real.
Yeah. But I love history, but history has to be told accurately.
Mm-hmm.
You can't cheat on that. It has to be told the way it really happened. And if you were to ask me, well, if describe in one sentence what KUHS is all about, it is the preservation, protection, and promotion of the Latino written word, because it has all but been ignored. I mean, we came from somewhere, right? We didn't just suddenly appear. We had a record of accomplishments, of deeds, and for the longest time, growing up, you would read all the poems of Shakespeare, Emily Dickinson, Hawthorne, Longfellow. Never in all my growing up time did I ever read a poem by a Latino writer until my introduction into the Chicano movement. Then I discovered Octavio Paz, Pablo Neruda, Carlos Fuentes, Borges, and people like that. And you can imagine a young man, a teenager or an adolescent, suddenly recognizing that our people are great poets, great writers.
Wonderful poets.
And it does a collective kind of, I don't know, a reintroduction, so to speak. An enlightenment takes place when you realize that your people are just as talented as anyone else. And that was really kind of what, like I said, if you had an underlying reason why we exist, it's precisely for that reason. But in it, once we could agree what it is we wanted to do, okay, how do we go about creating this awareness? And we've done, since those early days, we've done a lot. We've done presentations in schools, colleges. We've done poetry readings in libraries. We've done poetry readings at the Denver Women's Press Club. We've held special days and events like the Lado Delgado Poetry Fest, one of our more prolific poets. So we've done other kinds of things. Frank, if you want to chime in on the
when you talk about the printed word, we have relatives, friends, and so forth, and we encounter them, and they start telling a story, and say, "Have you put that in print?" I said, "No." So what happens if you fade away? Where's it going to be?
The story will,
it'll disappear with you. That was another big effort that we're trying to accomplish, because we wanted to see that, how do we put it together? How do we take a manuscript and bring it into a book? And that was the other thing we want to do about KUHS, because that takes a lot of editing, formatting, takes a lot of people to put it together, and then you have to have some marketing, Library of Congress, ISBN number, the whole works, the multiple steps to get it done. And I didn't have all those details, but we had other people that had done that, and so we went to them and said, how do we accomplish that?
This is your book.
That's my memoir, yeah. And then talking about stories and what I did, Paul and Ricardo, I had my dad sit down at a kitchen table when I put this book together years ago, and I still have his notes where he had a little ring of coffee. We put this cup down on top of it.
Wow.
A little third ring binder that I bought for him, because I knew that he was fading away physically and so forth, and I said, I want to capture as much as I can. I'm very fortunate I was able to think it that way at that time. But other people have done the same thing. Now they're beginning to talk to their relatives and so forth. And you're talking earlier about being on the inside and the outside. It reminds me, years ago I was at a movie that was being produced, and there was a small place, a small little room. And I said, how in the heck were they going to get the camera in there? Well, what they did is they opened up a window on the outside.
And shoot from outside.
Shoot the outside. And just panning back and forth. And I said, that's who we are. We're on the outside just panning back and forth, looking at it. But now with KUHS, we're in the room.
Yes.
We're in the room.
And not only that, but we're pulling other people into that upper place, or that
Exactly.
place where they're exposed, where they're getting to be recognized, and
Yes.
and not only that, but they're supported in that endeavor.
Yeah.
And so, how does somebody get involved in Calma? What if somebody wants to? I know there's, we probably got about 3,600 people watching right now.
Yeah.
I know there's someone out there who wants to join Calma.
Yeah. Well, our website is Calma CO for Colorado, calmaco.org.
Mm-hmm.
And in there's a request if you want to request a mentor, or if you want to engage. There's our address, and tells you how to join and so forth, the requirements and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Because we, fortunately, obviously we focus on Latinos, and also and preferably from Colorado. But if somebody has a story about Colorado's Latino, then that'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Or if somebody has lived in Colorado before but now lives elsewhere, that's also an entry.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to provide that niche of individuals that have that connection, that have not been invited in the past to be a member. And then particularly Dramas and Raíces, let me mention something about that real quick, Paul. It won the 3rd place, or the bronze medal, for International Book Award for the Dolores Huerta Best Cultural and Community book. And so we also were a finalist for Colorado Book Awards in Denver. So it's received 2 very significant
Prestigious
and claims and so forth. So we're very proud of that. So I'm glad you're in there as well as the 2 of us are. So.
Yeah. To kind of piggyback on what Frank was talking about. Growing up, we were always told that we were a storytelling, that we were more of a oral tradition kind of thing, and we were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the stories that I heard were simply passed down from generation to generation. But what happens if that generation skips one?
Oh yeah.
You can write a beautiful poem and recite it, and a year from now I won't remember it. But if it's written down, I have it forever. I have it forever. And it can be recalled instantly just by saving the written word. So that was part of the. But the other part that I wanted to emphasize is that you're quite right, bringing new people into the fold.
Yes.
Part of the Calma mission is the mentorship part, which tries to take people who aspire but don't really know how to get started.
Where to start?
We helped that. Recently we helped a young man who says, I've been wanting to do this for the longest time, but I never knew quite how to do it. He is now a member of Calma, and he's been assigned a mentor, and together they work. And we try and match you up with people who are compatible with one another. And so I can't say enough about the mentor. One of our mentors, Zaira Amador,
Yes.
had her own book published, and she appeared on us recently on a Channel 9 talk show. And so we're very proud of those kinds of things. But also the advocacy part. We recognized early on that Manuel Ramos was one of the most prolific writers out there. He created his own genre, Chicano noir, about kind of like the Dashiell Hammett, except his protagonist lives in North Denver and he's an activist, And so I wrote a nomination for him to be in the Colorado Writers Hall of Fame, and he won.
Yes.
And he holds the distinction of being the first one. So kind of paying it forward. 2 years later, him and his wife nominated Lalo Delgado posthumously, and Lalo Delgado won. So now there's 2.
Wow.
So that's part of not simply writing, but that's advocacy for the same goal, the recognition of our art forms.
So you're starting to see really fruition, fruits coming of the efforts of the people.
We've come a long way since those early days of the COVID pandemic.
Wow.
And also the Colorado Book Awards, they have scholarships. And you mentioned Zaida Amador a while ago, one of our mentees. And so what we did, we applied for the scholarship, she and I on her behalf, and she was awarded a scholarship. And she was also, in addition to the money that she received, she was paired with a mentor from the Colorado Book Awards. So she had a double mentoring from us and from them. And she has a beautiful story at some point. I hope you can bring her on board, because she really enthrall the readers and the listeners.
Please text me her name and information.
Right now we're kind of at what I like to think of as kind of a crossroads. We've had these successes. We're firmly established, I think, at least in Colorado. and where do we go from here? And I think the growth that we've seen in the preceding 6 years is beginning to pay off, because we're coming up with new ideas of how to take it to the next level. And I won't be satisfied until our complete history, not only of our history, but of the literary history and are part of the DPS or the Department of Education curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
People need to know that. People, and particularly young people, Latino people, they need to know their history as told by us, not
by the victors, not
by someone else. And because if they don't, once they understand how we fit into the whole scheme of things,
mm-hmm.
then they will not only defend, they will protect, they will promote this country that we call home.
Wow.
And if we don't have that, if we don't have that full recognition and acknowledgement that we are valued, then we're going to be permanent guests in somebody else's home. And
in our own homeland.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's we're very excited about the next, and we have some really wonderful people.
Oh man.
In Calma, they're creative, they're committed, they're talented, and I see nothing but great stuff.
We've had so many Calma members on the show. Please go ahead.
No, one of our board members, Dr. Irene Blea, lives in New Mexico. She does a weekly mentoring via Zoom or aspiring writers. And so we've had others that have joined, not only now in person, but also through the mentoring and Zoom process. So we have currently, like Ricardo said, 3 active mentors going on right now. We've already had 4 or 5 in the past, and then in addition to the ones on Zoom. So we're trying to move forward, and then we're also planning in October a writers' conference in Pueblo. So those are the things that we're trying to do that go beyond what we've been doing so far. This afternoon, for example, we're going to have the Love Poetry.
The Love Poetry this afternoon at the Denver Women's Press Club. That's an event that we're involved in today. Actually, they've been a partner of ours for quite some time, and they've been a welcome partner.
Mm-hmm.
So we
also mentioned partnerships with the University of Colorado Denver, with Regis and others, and also with the DU, because DU, as a matter of fact, is looking to, hopefully we can connect with them so we can have an intern that'll be part of Calma with DU, so they can help us even do more with the website and other kinds of support systems.
And in addition to just being poets, writers, we're also activists. You know, a couple of years ago, we performed at the university, Regis University, to celebrate the Cesar Chavez Day that we have here. It was preceded by a march. We did our program on Thursday. The march was on, but it was a promotional event to try and kick off the march that takes place on Chavez's birthday. That's scheduled again next month. So in addition to, like I said, we are also, in addition to being poets and writers, we're activists. We have the best interests of our community at heart, and we do what we can to lift our community, because I really believe that old saying that a rising tide lifts all boats.
All boats.
You know? And I think it's part of one of the things that I've kind of always believed in my life and practice.
Yep, I agree. It's when they eliminated diversity, equity, and inclusion, that was a heartbreak, because I was a valuing diversity instructor for almost 10 years at a utility company, and utility companies are notoriously sexist and notoriously racist. I mean, that's a fact. And to be involved in that community was really an eye-opening experience for me. And to know why we have diversity, why we have inclusion, why we have those terms, equity, they are because there's been a historic lack of inclusion. There's been a lack of equity. There's been, and the fact of the matter is, in a few years, we're going to be the #1 largest group in America, the Chicano Latino community.
I think we already
are the 5th largest community financial community in the world.
I think there's 60 million of us in the U.S. right now.
Wow.
That pales in comparison. 1940, the Latino population of the U.S. was 2 million.
Wow.
So, but about diversity, inclusion, and equity, you can erase it from legislation, but you can't erase it from the hearts of the people and the minds of the people. It's always going to be there. we're thinking in those terms, you know. It's like thinking proactively, not just about what you can see, but what you can feel, you know, and what
your
you
heart.
know, and what you know in your heart. You can't
Absolutely.
erase that from there. You know?
And that's a very important point, Ricardo, because also in addition to that, now as writers, the three of us who like to write, we have an opportunity to put DEI on the forefront through our writing.
Absolutely.
So even more of an instance, but also ammunition for us to really use writing to find ways to sidestep and also find ways to say we are diverse and here's why, and begin to show examples and also equity and why it's important. So I think sometimes we don't realize how important our writing is, and particularly now with the bilingual and bicultural type writing, because Ricardo and I are both bilingual and bicultural, and so we are able to do both in English and Spanish.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. It's such an additional dimension, and it's more inclusive, you know,
Yes.
because there's so many people that are watching that don't understand English. And so when they hear something in Spanish, they feel some kind of a connection, some kind of an inclusion, some part of I'm valued.
Yeah. Well, you know, a word about that, because yes, the Spanish language, one of our stock presentations that we do it over and over again, is we do a poetry reading with 5 or 6 poets, and each poem is recited in Spanish and in English. And when we first did it, we did it at Denver Women's, and there were a lot of non-Spanish speakers in the audience, but they confided later that even though I couldn't understand it, I could see the emotion, and I loved hearing it in Spanish, even though I didn't understand the words. And so that's part of, you know, personally, like I said earlier before we went on the air, is that I write primarily my poetry in Spanish, and then I translate. Some I write in English first, and vice versa. But it to me, it just always sounds so much better in Spanish. Spanish is more lyrical. Spanish is more versatile in terms of things that you want to say. Because there are some words that don't have a counter word in you know, and
in
so
English,
and if you're hearing it in Spanish, you say, well, you know, I don't know how to say that in English, because it's so unique that it has no counter word. You know.
Wow, that's powerful.
I was going to say, we also have a lot of Latinos in Colorado and New Mexico that Spanish is not their first language, but culturally they're very proud of being Hispanic and Latino.
Yeah.
And because of that, they feel the freedom, and they realize how important it is what we're doing as far as writers, because they want to be part of that, because their heart is there. They may not be able to speak the Spanish, but they still want to be a part of that growing the culture.
I think we all probably have friends like that. I've had Anglo friends who hung out with us as kids, and they think Chicano, they think in Spanish. They may not be by blood, but their corazón.
They're by the heart, yeah.
You know, and I have friends like that still. People who
Yeah. Guys, if you're just joining us, you are watching KUHS The Stream, and this is the Weekend Boost. I am your host, Paul Lane, and we are today talking to heroes, Mr. Ricardo Laforet and Mr. Frank Davila of CALMA, Colorado Alliance for Latino Mentors and Authors. And we're just talking about the Latino community right now. And, you know, I've always said everyone has a book. There's a book in each one of us, and you know what? It starts with page 1. And I encourage you, every time I come on here, I encourage you, get out your laptop and start typing. You know, when I wrote my book, I had an editor. She was in hospice. She was in hospice at the time. My first wife was in hospice, and she went through and she read a bunch of my book, and she said, "You know what? 70 pages of this has to go." And man, I mean, it was heartbreaking. But I took out 70 pages. But you know what she did is she encouraged me to continue. Don't let her discouragement shoot me down. But the point of it is that there is a book in you. And it's waiting to be written, it's waiting to be expressed, and it's waiting to be in print. I don't care if you're a poet, I don't care if you're a writer, you know, I don't care if you write satire, fiction, nonfiction, it doesn't matter. Start writing. Your words are valuable. And they are the one thing that will outlast you when you die.
One of the best advice that I got when I was still a young man, and I told my professor that I wanted to be a writer, and he said, get yourself a lot of paper and a lot of pencils and just start writing.
That's right.
And I said, that's it? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
No big
No
formula.
trick.
Just do it.
Mhm.
Just do it. And eventually, writing is one of those things that you can only get better the more you do it.
Mhm.
You know, the more you do it, and also read a lot. You know, because because you develop a style. You know, my favorite poet, Pablo Neruda, I see myself in him in his love poetry, particularly when he writes about not only about romantic love, but about lost love, about unrequited love, and all the forms that love take. And before that, you know, your high school teacher said, well, read Hawthorne, read Elizabeth Barrett Browning, read Shakespeare. Yes, but my love for love poetry began with Pablo Neruda and his 20 love poems, you know.
Yeah.
And that's again a kind of a discovery, a cultural odyssey that you have to take to find out who you are and what your voice is, because there's nothing better than finding your voice.
And that's a very important point, because we each have our own, I guess, preference as far as genre. Some of us are in the mystery writing, some of us are poets, some of us in nonfiction, others fiction and mystery and all the kinds of genres. So you have to read, like Ricardo says, what is it that attracts you? What kind of writings and what kind of visual, what is in your mind? And then you begin to write something about that. And in some businesses, you have multiple different genres going at one time. And I mean, I've got about 3 or 4 books that I've started. I need to kind of put 3 aside and finish one. And the other thing too, Paul, when you ask the listeners to start writing, it's multi-generational. Many times we think, oh, you gotta be young, you gotta be so age. And say, no, you can be a junior high school student and start writing, and or you can be an 80, 85-year-old now, whatever, and you can still write.
Yes.
So, you know, like Ricardo said, all you need is paper and pen, or a laptop, or whatever. So there's no, I guess, no hesitation on. There shouldn't be any hesitation, because there's no end. Nobody's putting a limit as to when you can stop writing.
You know, a lot of times I'll start writing poetry, and then all of a sudden I just hit a dead spot, and it's like I can't. Well, I used to get so frustrated. I would keep trying, you know, delete, start over. Now I just, you know, I set it aside, and I say I'll come back. And you know, it's funny because an hour later I come back. Oh yeah, all these words come to me, man.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my poems come from an inspiration. I'll give you a good example. Wednesday night, I'm sitting at Mile High Veterans at the bar talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about an upcoming book of poetry there. And he said, I'm about the only guy you haven't written a poem for. And I said, you know, that's right, you know. And I went home that night and I started thinking. I got up about 3 o'clock in the morning and started writing, because he's right. He's one of my best friends. I haven't written a poem about. I've written a poem about Frank. I've written all the people that are near and dear to me. I almost always end up writing a poem, because when we finally go to our final reward, you can say, hey, listen, you know. But of course, doesn't mean I want you to die between now and then. but you know, inspiration is a kind of thing that just there's no explanation for why it comes.
And you can pick that up anywhere. I mean,
anywhere.
For example, I'll be sitting in some meeting, and I'm listening, like you said, listening to somebody, and they'll make a comment, and that triggers another thought in my mind. So what I do now on my phone in my notes, I'll just put a sentence so I'll remember later. Go back to.
I do the same thing.
I'll text it to myself. You know?
Send yourself a text. Don't forget to write this. Don't forget to do this. Or you'll hear something, and it'll just be a fleeting thought, and you don't want to lose that. So you used to have to write it down. Now I can text myself, say these words, and then later put them into context. You know? So. It's just the whole thing about writing. I really encourage our readers. Every one of you, like Paul said, has a story within themselves. Just sit down and do it, and don't worry about whether or not it's going to be a bestseller or it's going to be New York Times bestseller list. You know, I've reread some of the poetry I wrote as a teenager. It is awful. It's terrible, but I got better because I continued to do it, and I got better and better. And it's just one of those things that I think everybody, like you said, has it in them. They just don't know they have it. It has to be cultivated, and sometimes it's merely something that happens at an instant reaction. You say, it's like something. It's like when an idea goes up in your head, you know, and you as a teacher, you relish that moment, the precise moment when learning happened, when you see that
like
thing
the light bulb goes
yeah,
on.
Yeah,
The epiphany moment.
I think that's what teachers feel like. That's what gives them their reward. That child learned something today, and I taught it to them. So
now that's a reward. That's
that is a reward in and of itself. Yes, absolutely.
Ricardo, you have a couple of poems.
I thought I'd bring a poem because being it as it's Valentine's Day, I thought maybe I'd like to read a love poem. I brought it in English and in Spanish, and this is a poem that I wrote for my wife when I realized all of a sudden that what she meant to me, and how we're both remarried. You know, I got married in my 50s after a lot of other stuff going back. But when I realized what a treasure I had in my life, I wrote this poem, and it's called simply To Diane, and I have it in English and in Spanish. I'd like to read it in Spanish first.
Please.
This is how it was conceived. This says, Querida, cuando nos conocimos no estaba buscando. Andaba vacilando, vagando sin rumbo. Pero el amor, como la muerte, puede de repente sorprenderte. Y es así que el amor me vino a mí. Cuando pensé que el amor se había ido, viniste y me elevaste a nuevas alturas. Ahora quiero que la marcha interminable del tiempo que marque la hora para que todo el mundo conozca la fuente de mi alegría. Esos momentos sutiles pero profundos, la música de tu rostro, que transforma las notas de una canción simple a una sinfonía, que transforman las notas de una canción simple. Camina conmigo, mi amor, a través de esta tierra, esta vida, este amor. Escucha el murmullo de este valiente corazón, esta alma que no quiere nada más de cumplir a tu lado. Camina conmigo, este vagabundo que te ama tanto. Camina conmigo, mi amor, estas últimas mías. Y cuando se emblanca mi pelo y mis ojos cansados no pueden ver más, y la muerte no se convierte en una amenaza, sino en un deseo. Un ángel puede venir y me pregunta, y yo le diré que yo era como yo era, porque tú me amabas. So I read that poem, and people were curious. Well, that sounds lovely. So I took the liberty of translating it, and the English version, as I said, I don't apologize for it, but to me it sounds better in Spanish. But this is the same poem in English. Querida, when we met, I wasn't looking. I was vacilando, wandering aimlessly. But love, like death, can suddenly surprise you. And so it was in that way that love came to me. Just when I thought love had gone, you came and lifted me to new heights, reawakening the hopeful heart. Now I want the unforgiving march of time to mark the hour so that everyone can know the source of my joy. Those subtle yet profound moments that take the notes from a simple song to a symphony. Walk with me, my love, through this earth, this life, this love. Listen to the murmur in this brave heart, this soul that wants nothing more than to fulfill itself alongside you. Walk with me, this wistful vagabond that loves you so. Walk with me, my love, these last few miles. And when I am older but wiser, and death is no longer a threat, an angel may come and ask, and I will tell her, I was how I was because you loved me.
Oh, man. That was a good Valentine's Day poem.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes out to my wife, Diane.
I'm going to go ahead and read one, and then we're going to have Frank play some music for us. And I wrote this one. I was really having a day of, when ICE first started really harming us and putting in concentration camps. And by the way, just like Germany had Auschwitz in Poland, we have CCOT in El Salvador, just like the Nazis. But these guys are not Nazis. They are homegrown. Think about this. They wear masks. They have guns. They terrorize people. That's KKK. They're the Proud Boys. That's KKK. The evidence is there. ICE is the KKK. And I stand behind that. Views on this station, on this program, do not reflect the views of the station, so I just want to make that disclaimer. And so when I started seeing everything, I had to really take stock, and I really looked at myself, and I sat down and I wrote this poem, Yo soy Chicano. It was just another day for me, a boy of 9 or 10. I heard their voices loud and clear, the women and the men. Thundering voices echoed off the walls, just booming like a gun. From blocks away, I could hear the many voices sounding off as one. The crowd filled the street solid from one side to the other. Men called everyone their sister and their brother. The conviction in the voices told me they had a vision. I had to get closer to hear their mighty mission. A man named Corky screamed, Chicano! And the proud yelled, Power! I wanted to go join, if only for an hour. My mother saw me standing there and said I shouldn't go. She said the people there were no one I should know. She told me I could not walk out of school. Then she shouted loud, Don't you ever let me catch you running with that crowd. I couldn't help but ask her why. She said that they were bad, 'cause Chicanos cause us trouble and they make the people mad. Those Chicanos, they're marching to make the schools more fair. But I think they're just violent. That Corky guy don't care. But in my heart, I disagreed. I felt his words were true. Mestizo blood runs through my veins, and though Spaniard blood runs too, I hadn't recognized the conflict of that colonizer's hand, or how they overpowered us and stole our sacred land. But as I learned of who I am, I hold my head up proud. I say these words today, I say them clear and loud. Yo soy Chicano, yo soy mestizo, indigenous and brown. My ancestors were kings and queens, and I must wear their crown. I will always tell my brothers, my sisters, and my friends, and anyone who listens, of how our history blends. I will honor our creator, Tonatzin, with love. I won't forget my grandmothers and grandfathers above. I love that I'm indigenous, though our blood spilled on the earth. Their genocide could never kill the me I was at birth. Yo soy Chicano.
Yeah.
I had to share that because because that's how I feel. I'm proud of my blood, my culture, my heritage, and I will proclaim that, and I'll always proudly proclaim that. And having you two on this show here today just fills my heart with joy and pride. I mean it.
It's exactly that kind of sentiment that our young people need to learn.
Yes.
Back in the 50s, when it was not cool and people tried to hide their indigenous side or even their Mexican side, it was because the mainstream society was somehow suggesting that was not cool. So a lot of people, I forgive them now because they didn't know what they were doing, but they tried to hide that part of themselves.
Even encourage their kids not to speak
Yeah.
Spanish.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And in a way I kind of recognize why they did that. Because if Spanish was considered abhorrent, you don't want your kid going to school feeling that way. So you kind of said, don't want you to speak Spanish.
I want to protect you.
Because I'm protecting you from the wrath of the larger society.
Yep.
So they did it out of love, but it was ill-advised to do that, because today people say, I wish my parents had taught me Spanish.
Yeah.
I wish I knew Spanish and so forth. So, but we're making up for that. We're trying to make up for that.
Yes.
Well, Bud Bunny did a good job on that.
Oh man, I'm telling you, that halftime show, guys, that was worth watching. And there's a lot of people who I'm hearing a lot of people saying, I don't speak a word of Spanish, but hearing his passion in his voice, his words, you could see that there was something powerful being said.
Frank, are you going to regale us with a song?
Yeah, it was the Benito Bowl. Yeah, that, in honor of Valentine's. This is a song. Tanto tiempo disfrutamos de este amor, nuestras almas se acercaron, tanto así que yo guardo tu sabor, pero tú llevas también negaras mi presencia en tu vivir, bastaría con abrazarte y confesar. Tanta vida yo te di que por fuerza llevas ya sabor a mí. No pretendo ser tu dueño, no soy nada, ya no tengo vanidad de mi vida, doy lo bueno, soy tan pobre que otra cosa puedo dar. Pasarán más de 1000 años, muchos más, yo no sé si tenga amor por la eternidad, pero allá tal como aquí, en la boca llevarás sabor a mí. I wish you bluebird in the spring to give your heart song to sing, and in a kiss, but more than this, I wish you love. And in July, some lemonade to cool you in, some leafy glade, and more than wealth, I wish you health, I wish you love. No pretendo ser tu dueño, no soy nada, ya no tengo vanidad de mi vida, doy lo bueno, soy tan pobre que otra cosa puedo dar. Pasarán más de 1000 años, muchos más, yo no sé si tenga amor la eternidad, pero allá tal como aquí, en la boca llevará sabor a mí, sabor, sabor a mí.
I'm telling you, you know, having somebody that can play the guitar and just come and serenade us in the studio.
But the other thing is, thank you, Frank, for that song, because it's one of my favorite. But it's a good illustration of what I spoke of earlier. How
the language.
This guy was trying to explain to these non-Spanish speakers what sabor meant, and he told them that it meant a taste. And I said, no. Sabor is much more than simple taste. It's the essence of something.
Man.
You know, it's the smell of her hair, of her perfume, days afterwards.
Yes.
That's something that stays with you, that permeates you. That is sabor.
When you close your eyes and you see her face right there.
It's not simply taste. That's too restrictive.
Limiting,
a word,
yes.
You know, you can't just say taste. And so thank you, because that's a perfect illustration of how the Spanish language is much more versatile and lyrical than English.
That's a very powerful explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sabor a mí, you know, especially after your explanation is like your memory, your taste, your soft skin, your hair, the smell, everything, yeah.
Everything that goes into that, not just taste.
Yes. I remember when I was a young kid and my mom, we used to listen to KFSC.
Oh, I remember.
For Paco Sanchez. My mom was friends with Paco.
Jesucita in Chihuahua. I remember the theme song.
My mom would translate for me, and she would be there with her eyes closed translating a song, and she'd go, I can't translate it. There's no words for that.
Yeah. She was right.
And I remember hearing that, and I couldn't grasp that. And as time's gone on, and I've gotten more and more of an understanding of, you know, Espanol, I'm starting to see the essence of the power of the words and just the beautiful essence of what it expresses in itself, and how
absolutely
unrestricted it is. It's so much more powerful than the English language that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you think about it, a lot of the poems wind up as being songs, because that's how you start writing a song. You put the words to it and make it rhyme and make it fit the music, and then you put the lyric. So those are the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
You put the music behind it. So
I don't think people really realize what it takes to write like that. I mean, when you
No.
struggle for one word,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been stuck on. I said,
Oh,
this
man.
this doesn't work.
What rhymes with cloud?
Well, not even the matter of rhyming, but how can you really get the point across that you're trying to get? What words can I use to make it self-explanatory so that people
Mhm.
get it? You know, you could write above people's heads. It doesn't do you any good. Pablo Neruda said, the only obligation any poet has is to make himself understood by the simplest of his people.
Wow.
If you
wow.
write something that people don't understand, they're not going to.
It's, yeah.
You know, there's a story I like to tell about Pablo Neruda. He visited these coal mines, the copper mines in Chile. This guy came out of the copper mine, laborer, uneducated, and his eyes hurting from the sun coming up from the mine, and he met Pablo Neruda, and he tells him, I've known you for a long time, brother, even though he'd never seen him, because Neruda's words were understood by the simplest of our people. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
and that reminds me. There's a professor. She's deceased now. Her name is Gloria Ansaldúa from University of Texas in Austin. And same thing. She was telling us that many times people either criticize the way we speak Spanish because we're from Texas and we speak Pocho. We don't know the exact more meanings and how to use Spanish correctly, the Castilian way, the Spanish way. And so she wrote something about that. She said, you know what? It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with meaning, communicating. Because if I'm speaking with a Chicano type use or using a Pachuco like orale, que tal, mezquineas, this and that, if we understand each other, we're communicating.
That's right.
That's the essence.
Yeah.
And sometimes we, I guess, there's a place to write things well. It's going to be formal, but then you have the social piece and you have the cultural. Because you throw in that in, you know, some of us, because of our background, we have different cultural understanding and experience based and background. So we use that kind of forth through our writing.
Wow.
That's to me is the difference between informing and communicating.
Oh man, that's such another powerful statement.
Yeah.
Please.
No, exactly. I agree with that because sometimes we do that. We tell people how to think and so forth. But the fact that we had Ramas and Raíces, and we have a lot of other writers, to go further back a little bit on what Calma does and what Calma wants to do, we've been to classrooms, and Ricardo's been there, we have been there, and we try to encourage the high school students to think about who they are and write about their parents, about themselves, about what they're feeling and thinking. And then that will be the genesis of who they are, because then they can present themselves through the writing. So.
And we also have to recognize, and we do, that there is a whole new genre of poetry out there. It's called slam poetry or performance poetry. Depending on how much time at a later date, I do a seminar or workshop called The Evolution of Chicano Poetry, where you will read poetry the way it was written and read in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And then how that evolved into, but as long as the message remains the same, I don't care about the style. You know, when I hear poems in that rap style and everything, and I didn't like it at first, but as I listened more intently, I realized, oh, those are Chicano poems. They're just using a different kind of style. So as long as the melody can change, but as long as the message is the same. The message is, so I do that workshop sometime. It's called The Evolution of Chicano Poetry, in which we read in both styles, and then we talk about what made you do this, what made you do that. It's just kind of interesting. So sometime if you have an hour, we can do, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Man, we can do that.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm telling you, go to calmaco.org. CALMACO.org. Immerse yourself in this experience, in this background, in the opportunity to mentor and to be mentored by people that are literally legends. I mean, these two guys right here. I mean, we have Irene Blea, we have Carmen Baca, we have Virginia Sanchez. We have so many. Beatriz Montoya. There's so many. I mean, Manuel Ramos. The list goes on and on. We just had David Carrillo come on the show. He's a Calma member, and he spent 32 years in prison. Life without parole. He got his master's degree in prison and was teaching college courses from prison.
Yeah.
Chicanos, man. And you know what? In spite of everything that's been dark in his past, he's got a bright future. And when you start looking at yourself in terms of being a light, then you gotta shine. You gotta shine. Get that tablet out, page 1, and get it done. We're waiting for your book.
Ricardo Sanchez one of the originals, used to sign his books. Ricardo Sanchez, GED, PhD.
And you know, that's exactly who we are. You know, we encompass all levels to some degree, not so many at the higher levels, but we do represent all levels of society.
Okay.
And we are valid. And you know, I talk about this story all the time. Next Saturday I'm going to go to Walsenburg, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go see the grave of my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather. They're buried in the same graveyard. Pero those two, they were Mexicanos.
Yeah.
It was Plaza de Leones, Mexico. My grandfather was born in the same land, but it was America.
Yeah.
When we say that we didn't cross the border,
That's,
it's true statement.
yeah. It was a slogan, but it's more true than untrue.
More true.
The people, I was doing a tour at the History Museum, and this guy from Cherry Creek says, I was wondering why, once you pass Pueblo, all of the names start to have Spanish names. Why is that? And I told him, because that part of Colorado used to belong to Mexico prior to 1848. He goes, I didn't know that. He said, it makes sense. Why didn't I know that? And I said, exactly. Why doesn't the schools teach you that?
They don't. They don't. I don't know if it's because they don't want you to know it or because it's just not in their curriculum. But you know, personally, I want to know my history.
Sure.
You know, I want to know why there's trauma still in my blood from, and where did it come from? 7 generations back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If some white guy had founded Huérfano County, he would have called it Orphan County.
Orphan County.
Not Huérfano County. You know?
That's absolutely
That
true.
guy, it hit him like one of those light bulbs. He said, of course, that makes sense,
of
but
course.
why didn't I know that? And I said, that's my point. Why didn't you know that?
Yes.
You should be taught that, you know?
Yes.
And I think that's one of the beauties of CABA, that we have different age ranges. We have young authors and middle, and then more seasoned authors age-wise, because we learn from each other. And we want to bring out the best of each different generation and what they can offer, because we have different backgrounds and experiences that set us go on a particular track, a journey, and then we explore that, and then we present that in writing.
Yeah.
So we want to do that and then stay connected with generations.
History, if it's not told accurately, isn't history. It's gossip or it's opinion.
It's all opinion. It's all, nothing more. Guys, this has been a fast hour. We gotta go out. A couple of minutes left, but again, calmaco.org. Guys, there are a whole new crop of authors coming out. We're going to be featuring them on the show in the weeks and months to come. This is an opportunity to immerse yourself not just in great leadership and get mentorship, but also an opportunity to mentor other people. And you know, there's no limit to where this can go from here, but it's going to take your involvement. It's going to take you being a part of the team. And this is a team with plenty of room for you. And I mean, when you go to one of these poetry readings, or when you go and go for Halloween and hear stories of La Llorona, it's because of Calma.
Paul, thank you so much, my brother. You do a great service for our community.
Thank you. It's my honor, really, man.
It's great to be here, and thank you for your words of wisdom.
Well, thank you, guys. I mean, wisdom. I'm humbled just to be here with you guys. Guys, stay tuned. Mr. International, Paul Chavez is going to be on. He's going to be entertaining you for the next hour, and he's going to be putting on some jams for you. Please stay tuned. KUHS Denver, the stream. You have been watching the Weekend Boost. I am your host, Paul Lane, and today we have been talking to heroes. And again, what's my slogan? If everybody's looking for a hero, if you can't find one, be one.
Yeah.
Frank Davila, gracias.
Gracias.
Ricardo
Thank you,
Lafore,
brother.
gracias. Thank you, guys. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us.
Right on.
All right.
1 hour.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job, Frank.